Hi guys, welcome back. Today we discuss about Docker. What is Docker? Docker is a containerization platform that allows you to package an application and all its dependencies into a single unit called a container. So it works on a machine. So one machine it works, and so we can create multiple containers. And why Docker? Before Docker, application, OS, libraries, runtime. So different versions will be the application, different versions will be there, dependency issues will be there, environment mismatches will be there. So before Docker, those all actually issues were there, and so with Docker, app plus libraries plus runtime, make it as a container, same everywhere, fast, lightweight. So this is very fast and also same everywhere it is same and also lightweight. So Docker versus virtual machine. So features OS full OS per VM. So in Docker container shares host OS. Boot time virtual machine it's take minutes, and Docker container it's seconds. And size virtual machine it is in GBs. Docker container we can build within MBs only. Performance virtual machine heavy. So Docker container lightweight. Cost wise virtual machine is high. Docker is low. So diagram VM hardware, host OS, VM guest OS plus app, VM1 we have to install guest OS plus app, VM2 guest OS plus app. In Docker hardware, host OS, Docker engine, container 1, container 2. So we just we call it as a container. Uh, so Docker work on containers. So that is lightweight, and so it's not like a VM, and so it's functioning like a VM, but it's a lightweight, very lightweight, and one VM we can build multiple containers. So we can utilize that container for our purpose. Key Docker components, Docker engine, first one. Run containers installed on Linux and Windows and Mac. So Docker engine is first Docker component. It runs containers. It will install on Linux, Windows, Mac OS. So all OS it will install. Docker image, read-only template. So Docker image read-only template. Blueprint of container. Example, Nginx latest, Python 3.110. So example, there are two images. Nginx latest image, Python 3.10 image. So images are like that. So it is like a read-only template blueprint of container. Docker container, running instance of an image. So from image Docker container, what it does? So instead it will run image from the it will run instance from the image. Image run container. So from image it will run container. Take one image. That is also lightweight, and it is very less size only. So by using that, it will run the container. Docker file, text file with instructions to build an image. So it is a text. It is a file. It is a it like a text file with instruction to build an image. Example from Python 3.10. Copy app.py. So cmd Python app.py. So Docker file contains like this. Okay, and Docker file it contains the configuration of the image. Mhm. Docker registry stores images. Popular registries: Docker Hub, Azure Container Registry (ACR), AWS ECR. So Docker registry store images. Popular registries. So other popular registries are there. Docker Hub. So you just this registry from Docker Hub also we can download images. Azure Container Registry. So we can upload and download images in the Azure Container Registry, and also so existing images also we can use from this AWS ECR. So in AWS it is AWS ECR Container Registry. So Docker architecture and developer use Docker build, Docker by using Docker image, Docker later Docker run, you use the command Docker run. So Docker container from Docker container use Docker run, and next application will run. Basic Docker commands. So these are the listed are the basic Docker commands that we need to remember. Docker space version. So check Docker version. It will check the Docker version. Docker pull nginx. Download image. So if you want to download any image, Docker pull nginx or Docker pull Firefox, Docker pull anything so whatever image you want, Docker pull MySQL like that. Docker pull IIS, Docker pull SQL. So based on the availability, it will download. The latest one it will download. Docker. If you want specific version, yeah, also you can mention. Docker images. So this command list images. So how many images are there in our local local registry? So it will list the images. Local server. Okay, how many images are there? Will list. Docker run nginx. So if you use this command, it will run container. So already container built, and so if you want to run, so you have to use Docker run nginx. Docker ps. So if you use the Docker ps command, so it will show the running containers. Okay, and Docker ps -a. So it will show all containers whether it is running or it is stopped like that. Docker stop ID. So Docker stop ID means container ID. So you just use Docker ps-a. There you can get the container ID. So if you want to stop it, Docker stop ID, you have to use ID or name. So it will stop the container. Docker RM ID. So if you want to remove container, Docker RM take the container ID and you just give it here in the command. Remove container. Docker RMI image. So Docker RM it will delete the image. RMI remove. Okay, and so Docker RMI it will delete the image. So these are just regular used commands, and so there are other commands also. Just these are day-to-day commands which we posted. Example: run web server in 10 seconds. Docker run -d -p. So 80 port number we are mentioning here. Nginx. So Nginx web server it will run the Nginx web server. Okay, and so next we are mentioning here Nginx image Docker run -d. D means it will run once it is container is created. So it will exit from the uh, exit, it will exit. Otherwise, it will it will open and it's continuously running like that. So Docker run -d -p port number we are giving. Web server running, no installation, production ready. So if you use this one, automatically web server will run. Docker use cases. In real world, how we use Docker, it's a microservices and also CI/CD. We use in CI/CD pipelines. We can use it. It is in CI/CD pipelines. When we have to build automatically. Cloud deployments. So for cloud deployments, we use Docker. Dev test environments. If you want to test anything, if you want to develop anything, so that environments also we use Docker. Kubernetes. So Kubernetes also Kubernetes use Docker compulsory. So AKS, CKS, Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes Service, Elastic Kubernetes Service for AWS. Docker in Azure. So how Docker is in Azure? Docker in Azure, what are the Docker services? So Azure Container Registry, ACR, store images. So how Azure providing the Docker facility? So Azure service, Azure Container Service, ACR, role store images. Azure Container Services, so we can store images. Azure Container Instances, ACI, run containers. In ACI, it will run the containers. Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, orchestrate containers. So Azure providing these three services for containers. Okay, and Azure Container Registry for storing images, Azure Container Instances for run containers, Azure Kubernetes Service for orchestrated containers. Docker versus Kubernetes. Docker, Kubernetes. Create containers. Docker used for create containers. Kubernetes manages containers. Single host focus. Docker focusing on single host, and so Kubernetes multi-node cluster. So it is Docker is simple. Kubernetes is enterprise scale. So when enterprise scale, they want more containers. So for orchestration, we use Kubernetes. Docker is called build and run. Docker is called to build the container and run the container. Kubernetes manage and scale. It manages the Kubernetes. It manages the container and it will uh, scale up the containers and it will increase the containers. So learning path, Docker basics. Docker. So what we have to learn? Docker basics we have to learn. Docker file and images. Docker networking also. Docker volumes. Docker compose. ACR, AKS. So that's all about Docker. Docker introduction. So I will discuss more videos later. Thank you.